Right, the idea with the Sip and Sketch is that you're trying to keep it as simple as possible, and we are going to walk you through the stages of just creating an artwork. Nice and simple. We don't want to overcomplicate things. You've just got this one's a Pilot G2. It's the same as a fine liner, just a normal straight Pilot fine liner. And we usually make markers, so the center point, and then we have areas next to it that help us just see where things are compared to other things. And as you follow along, I want you to just bear in mind where those things are, so that when we make marks, you are able to see where things are relative to other things. We're going to start with a straight line that just goes 3/4 of the way across the page, from just below a finger's depth down. Nice straight line there that will give us a foundation. On a strong foundation, you end up creating a great artwork. Okay, and the more you scribble, the more you're able to get some real energy developing out of it. So don't try and be too exact. You want to really just get a sense of flow happening. So again, another little finger's width down. We're going to generally try and get it to start curving down towards us there by the time we get to 1/3 of the way across to the left. And then we take a lovely little curve back about halfway. So we've come and we've curved down, quick little ellipse there backwards, and we're going to then ellipse it back again. Alright, and the ellipse should be bigger as it comes towards you, so as you turn towards you can make that a bit bigger. And then you've got that long top of the S down the bottom of the S, and you can stop there. So you're about a thumb's width from the base, 2 thumbs width from the base of the picture here. And what we'll do then is, like you've got this line that's coming down here, we extend it off the back of the S there, and we drop down and extend it off the back of this S here and do exactly the same thing. We drop it forward, and we can stop with just a bit of a curve at the bottom there. So there you've got your basic lines along the left in no time at all. And you want to picture yourself sitting on the edge of a space, and you can almost see that these things are actually happening in front of you. You're in a valley, and you've got your pen out, and you're wanting to create an environment, which usually requires that there's a variety of texture. So I'm now flicking up just a very thin distance from that top line there. I'm just going to flick up. Those of you that have joined us before, you will know that we start at the bottom and you just flick it upwards, and we continue off the side here until we get to the edge of the canvas, the paper there. We're just flicking all the way across. So we've now covered across to the other side. What's going on in the middle here is that we need to create a barrier where, I guess it's like one of these trees, which is the usual popsicle type thing, where you have your popsicle when you're a youngling. You've got your stem, you've got your popsicle on the top there, and as you get better at drawing trees, you add more popsicles to it. And so there we've got our basic popsicles. You don't have to draw these in, but that's where I've got my basic shapes from. I'm imagining that those things are there. And so you then get, and as what one does when you are working with light on different areas, you've got your circle, light comes down and hits it, and you've got your darkness down the bottom. If you're wanting to create a sphere, very dark down the bottom, and then you get that shadow that establishes itself there. So in order to see that as well, so let's say we generated darkness in the background, that's how we are creating that light. So that object then stands out in an environment. And if you can, you get really good at using your lines to show that that is the way the object grows. You then get even more form developing. It shows even more light and dark against it, and you create an even better sense of form. These lines coming straight out here show that the surface that it's sitting on is flat. So the exact same thing is going to happen here, is we are creating a little scribble for where this branch is coming out, and it's creating a bulbous base in this scenario there. And then again, it's doing the same thing here. We get that to create, and then even within those, you can get smaller ones. And these little cup shapes, so that there's light on the top and dark on the bottom. All right, scribbling. And you'll see the way, if I were to slow that down, it's creating a star effect. Just because there's perhaps the stem is in the center and it's coming out from there. And then another big one in the foreground here perhaps. We'll come back and look at how that actually makes sense in due course. You could just have one big cauliflower and then have the light on the top there as a simplicity. As I said, the more you scribble, the better it's going to be. Okay, now remember that sipping and sketching means you need to have a little bit of a sip of something. Your mouth might be dry now, and don't please refer to the person who's sitting next to you and see if they are doing any better than you are. There's no comparison. This is just a simple step-by-step enjoyment process of trying to copy and hopefully come up with something that's totally unique compared to what is perhaps sitting next to you. Now in this space at the back here, we've got a sense of depth that's developed. We're going to have the same tree, or the same tree shape. Let's call it a wild mango. Alright, it's not quite shaped like this. Hopefully Anthony Kashula is not watching this, because he is a world-renowned guide in the Kona Reserve Valley in southern Zimbabwe, where there are big wild mangoes, and this is perhaps not the shape of them, but generally speaking they are nice big broad trees. We're going to create that same sort of cauliflower shape, and we're going to replicate it next to itself there, and then maybe a smaller one, didn't have its feet in as much fertilizer when it was a child, goes along there again, and then a little gap, definitely got browsed by a bunch of sable or whatever the case, and then we get another big one coming in there, and these guys are just going to trickle all the way along. Nice. And this is where your imagination can come in. Alright, this is late afternoon. You've got the light coming in from the right left hand side here. You're just on the edge of this river. You're waiting for the loxodont coming in to drink, the elephant, and you're got your little pen out and your paper, and you're documenting life. You'll be able to look back at this. If it's not great, you can hide it in the spare bathroom, but we haven't had any failures so far. What you're doing is, in each one of those, you can see how I'm slowly going in a, not taking my pen off the page. I take it off for the next one, and I'm going in and out in like a latticing paisley type shape. Alright, and in the bottom of that one, creating this cup shape down the bottom, leaving the light to be light at the top. Alright, but underneath all of them, we're creating this darkness. Alright, trying to be as efficient as possible, and that's that word abstraction. It's just, if you look at it in the dictionary, abstraction is just another word for simplification. We want to create the simplest possible form of you making a line on the page. Alright, it's really about trying to define the art of being you. And so that's a simple, I'll give you a couple of seconds to finish that off there. In order to be able to see the tops of these guys, the tops of them, we've got to create some darkness in the background. But the shapes that are going to be in the background are going to be even smaller than those guys. So really tiny little bobbles up. So the tree line right in the distance there, that we can get hopefully to be nice little, just subtle wobbles as it comes across. But then as we get to this side, it's going to start climbing up to reach the ridge on the top of the edge of this gorge. Okay, and it wobbles and erodes and whatnot. We get to our pyramidal conversation again, where there are those the stories of the pyramids and where they've come from. Let's not do too much detail there. My point of having that in the background is that in order to be able to see the top of these trees here, you are wanting to create a little bit of darkness. Now I'm just using flat lines. Flat lines here, it's the simplest way of creating shade. So I'm not going all the way up to the line I've just done, I'm just doing below it, a flat area. So I'm really just looking to create some ink on the page. Flat area, distant shapes, if you had time, you could just go in at the back here and you would be looking at drawing individual cauliflowers, getting smaller and smaller to create that sense of depth. But we don't have time to do that. So once we get to the edge here, we are wanting to try and create this umbrella effect, an upside down umbrella, in the way that the form of these rocks, these cliffs, come out towards you. You can see how if you were to drop water on the top there, it would dribble out down these caverns here, and these channels of broken things. So how do we do that? We take a gap, we drop down, and then we go backwards, and we drop down, and then we cross hatch it in there. All right, we cross hatch it in there, so it's like a gap. As it goes down, you drop it down, and then you rock it in there again, and you drop it down. So it looks like it's just, these things are upside down U's. The letter U upside down, it's got, and it drops down into these little crevices at the top here. You almost need to picture yourself being up there. You can slide down on your bum down one of these little rock crevices here, out onto the sand, and dribbles all its way screed down to the bottom here. The Taliesin scree gets to the bottom. Okay, and then in order to show that form, you can see how if you point up to the top light, you go over and then you drop down again. It's very simple. Up, over, and down. But on the over, you take your pen off, so that you're creating up on this side as well, over, and then down. And by doing that, you're showing the form of the cliff face there, or of the side of a mountain. And obviously as you get further down, you get more and more of a relaxed slope as it's been building, and all that eroded material sort of weathers its way out there. Okay, so that is trying to create just this basic anatomy of a hill that would, I suppose, have been a block to start with, maybe when a sill had been pressed out during the formation of tectonic plates and whatnot. We eroding that over time. In order to create even more depth here, we are going to sneak into this background and create exactly the same thing. We're going to create a cliff face in the background here. So this river has gone around, it's going to sneak around, it's going to go along the base of these cliffs. But we want to wobble along and create that same mountain effect, but now we've got it face on. And this is a tricky task to try and get right, but at the same time it shouldn't be too complicated. It is a new thing that we haven't done in the past in our sips and sketches, but at the same time it's a lovely skill to be able to learn. You don't want to get out into the field and think, oh my god, how do I deal with now that I've got that mountain in front of me, and what am I supposed to do? You want to treat it like a block of butter, and you've got a butter knife in front of you. This is a piece of butter, and you're going to cut out a crevice in front of you there. All right, you literally peel it out, and then like we did at the front here, you want to say down this side here. And Vicky, this is especially for you, because I knew you said that you struggled with this side, this part of it, and I was very sad for you to say last week's was better than this week's. It hurt my heart. So I'm going to try and give you a bit more detail as to how to make these cliffs look more like Steve's. And so we can't have them being better than you. So there we're creating these V's coming down there, and as we go across there, we can also create them. We don't even need to bring the lines down. We use that language immediately just on our own to create those shapes. You see as it comes down there and then again drops down. So it's its own type of language. You can create it yourself. So where it goes down and up, same thing. If you were to run your lines and goes up, lines come down and go up, 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 and it's a repetition of that all the way down. And that's what creates the topography and the anatomy of this particular space that exists in the background. Now you can continue going along that, and you can create your own amount of sort of creases and nicks and crannies and nooks and crannies that you can break it down to be even more detailed and create some nice dark shapes that trickle down the real rock edges, which have got sharper spaces to them. And now in order to do that, you're just going to create more rough edges that are less eroded. So let's follow the top of this line to start with. It goes down, comes back. We're just repeating that. Goes up, runs down, goes down there, goes and follows up. So whatever you've created, you're just going to repeat it. All right? And then you're going to run again, just below it, closer to itself now. Up, up. And you follow that. This is very simply trying to keep your pen on the page. So then you've got a sill or a layer, sedimentary layer that is more resistant. It's a different rock layer that is now standing out. It's a darker color. It's been laid down in the very, very distant past. And you can, if you want, you can just do a quick shading of that to be just vertically a little bit darker. Right, so you get that shape to be, you can stand it out by doing little vertical lines on it. What it does is, and if you can go, this is a sneaky trick, as you start going around the corner, you can go closer together, and then as it's lighter, you go lighter. As it goes around the corner, you can do your lines closer together so it's darker. So you're showing that form going around the corner there. Alright, and that form going around the corner there, around the corner there, around the corner there. So all your corners can go out, and you can repeat it as it goes around in this area, and you get your building to fall down, or your rock face to fall down. Okay, so we're wanting to be able to create our, and there might be this distant hill. We've got this forest that climbs up into the cavern there, and climbs up into the cavern there, up into there as well, where the screed has fallen down, and then there's actually forest that's growing on top of that. So you can create your tiny little cauliflowers in there as well. Tiny little tops of those trees in their little cauliflower shapes. And remember that in order to see a shape on top of another shape, you're wanting to make the top, keep it light, and the bottom dark. And we'll fill that in with our ink pen in a small moment. Okay, so we've got that treated. We need to now picture that we are in this water here, and we are going to allow this to have a base. So as it comes out, it's going to slowly start moving towards this bottom right hand quadrant here, and if that is your line, if you're to trickle it across, you want to sort of replicate that parallel so that the river moves around and comes towards us. Then as well, you get this little edge that's going to flick over and drop down to the drink there, and then it follows around. So you get that beautiful flow happening. And in order to create this topography or this form that exists here, you almost got to picture yourself being something that's skimmed along the water, then decided, I'm going to go out for the evening up onto this ridge. So I'm going to climb up. You can just trickle along your pencil, taking it up, off, and putting it back on again in your pen. And that shows I'm going up, and then I flatten off. I'm coming out with my footprints here, climbing up the ridge, and then flattening off. You'll find that here, oh no, it suddenly is it's not as steep, all right, as I go over, and as I go over there as well. So these are all paths, and there might be one that goes up like that as well. By going up like that as well, around that corner, you then create a lovely little channel, and that's a really cool skill to be able to learn. That is, you are in control of designing an outdoor environment that you wish you could be sitting in front of. And if we throw in a couple of bird sounds in the background, and maybe some hyena calling as it's walking past the fig trees right in the distance there, walking past Chipinda pools, it starts getting very exciting, because again, that's where it drops down, and you create that little bit of a creek that goes in there. All right, and then as we come in this side again, we just continue to create a little bit more, try and get away from it being too generic, and you want to create a little bit more form there. Okay, so it flattens out as maybe it comes around this corner, and this is where the crocs would sit in the sun, because it's a very gentle climb. That one's quite a steep climb as it goes over there, but this one is actually quite nice and flat. And the same with this one here. Maybe it's got a little bit of a jump little bit of a jump, so the crocs would have to struggle a little bit to climb over that one. And then maybe this one also. Because we've shown that that one's quite high, we want to give it a little bit of an edge as it comes around the corner. Flat, flat, flat. And then you can have your verticals. So it's almost like it's a drop-off. Alright, it's a drop-off. Surely I suppose the water would be running a lot quicker around the outside there, and the deposit would be here, so this would be a little bit of a shallower thing maybe. And so in terms of the water flow, the Oxbow Lake would be forming this side, so we should probably have a steeper edge on the fast flowing. Never mind, this is not a geography lesson. Okay, so we're going to just give ourselves a little bit of artistic license there. So now you've got your basic drawing out literally in 20 minutes. And so what you want to do thereafter now is take some water, and you can take your brush, and it's just a simple, what is this? This is a number $10 gold, but it's the same. It's a little round, it's about a quarter of the width of your finger. And you're looking to create the simplest and easiest part first. So you can make sure that you want your river to stay as light as possible, and you move your pen and your brush in the direction that your pen was going. So you pick up a bit of ink on the edge and then you follow in that direction. The trick with this brush is to make sure that you are not ever obliterating the surface. Okay, so what I mean by that, I'm not going back to the water, I'm sticking with what's left on the brush. I want to create a light that is on the top here, and hence I'm going to go in the background just on that dark line, because this is the base, allowing that light to stand out there, and then we can sneakily go on top of it underneath these little bits here. There we go. So we're creating the darks under the base of these trees. And we're nearly done. We just want to quickly finish this off. So we can highlight the top of that by finishing that off there, and you get to see the tops of these trees standing out because of that dark in the background. And you can take your time to go around these individual trees in the back there as well. But we come into the foreground here, and this tree again, you treat it exactly the same as that there. You're wanting the tops to stand out, so that is a horizon on the side. And again here, you're coming on the front, you want that water to stand out. You also want the tops of the grass there to stand out. So this ridge here, you're running your brush literally along the lines where you were working. Right, it's as quick and simple as that. But as Mark was asking a couple of days ago, previous exercise, you do run your brush on the top of these things, but how is it that you get to create a cliff, a set of clouds? You've got the light on the one side, and it's all well and good creating topography, but how do we get a sense of this cloud to come over? As your line drops over the horizon, you get that refraction of light, so things tend to stand out on this side only. But what you can do is you can just wobble your brush, pick up some of this darker ink, and then you wobble your brush up over the top, and there you get your light to jump out. Remember that the tops of your clouds are quite fluffy, so you're wanting the base to be straightish, but then the top to be light. Okay, and then that is that. If you are looking for more texture to stand out in the foreground, you can come on top and lift it up and flick here, because there might be some grass that stands out, because that gives it a vertical feeling in the front here, and the same on this side here. You can get that vertical to happen, because what happens when you do that, you can then come back with the brush again and you can just drop down your verticals. Must be vertical, absolutely straight down. If you're going to create water, your reflections need to drop straight down. Okay, and there we go. there is your step-by-step little image of a walk through a river scene with some cliffs in the background. Remember, you need to stop. If you keep going, it might end up destroying it. So, less is more. Hope you enjoyed that. Remember to subscribe if you're keen to join us for the next one, and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed that. See you on the next one.